Hello there, today we're going to be talking about the introverted thinking and how it relates specifically to INFJ. What are its pluses, what are its minuses, and what can you do to improve your introverted thinking? Okay, so first of all, if you'd like to skip to the summary section of this video or the most important points of the video, then you can find them all around me. My name is Deem, and let's get started. So first of all, what is introverted thinking? Well, according to Marissa Baker, the goal of TI, or introverted thinking, is to formulate questions, create theories, find insights, and fit external facts into the framework of the idea or theory it has created. So for INFJs, introverted thinking is located on the third place out of 8 cognitive functions, so which means it can be developed, but usually it's not as bright as with other types. Just like FE, or extroverted feeling for INFJs, introverted thinking is also a decision-making functions, but unlike extroverted feeling that is trying to bring as much harmony as possible with their decisions, introverted thinking kind of doesn't care about this, and it cares more about logic. There's a reason that there's another name for introverted thinking, and that is accuracy, which means that introverted thinking cares about whether the information is accurate enough, not whether it makes other people feel good. Now, because it's introverted, it's quite comfortable for us to use it, but remember that usually it's not as reliable as our dominant function, which is introverted intuition. However, if you have a job that is traditionally introverted thinkish, then do not get discouraged, because I really don't believe people that say, or maybe websites that say, oh, okay, INFJ is going to be happy only when they are going into a job that is going to make them use their first 2 cognitive functions, which is introverted intuition and extroverted feeling. I really don't think that's the case. Well, maybe for most cases that might be true, but for you personally that might not be true. And maybe you're a programmer, for example, or you're an engineer, and you might be a fantastic engineer or programmer. And don't think that just because introverted thinking is your third function, that means you're not going to be as good as other types in this job. So trust your heart and know that you are your best authority in that case, because it's your first dominant function, right? Introverted intuition. So you know inside of yourself what to do, where to go, and what to pursue. All right, now let's dive into pluses and minuses of introverted thinking. Plus number 1, it can stabilize our crazy, sometimes extroverted feeling. So sometimes we might be in a situation where we do something and after that we feel guilty, right? But the thing is, it really depends on case-by-case basis, right? So sometimes you might feel guilty because, yeah, you've definitely done something wrong. And sometimes you might feel guilty because that guilt was instilled in you by your parents, your father or your mother, or maybe your sibling or your grandparents as well. And in that case, that might not be a very rational type of guilt, because you feel like you owe something to that person when you actually do not owe them anything, which is something that introverted thinking can help you with. It's going to ask questions like, does that even make sense? Why do I feel guilty? Like, what's the point of me feeling guilty? What's that gonna give me? What's the intention of that? For what purpose am I doing this? Does that bring me anything productive, or is it just bringing me down and then making me feel like I cannot do anything and making me feel worthless? Introverted thinking can help you tame your extroverted feeling when you are trying to give to everybody and give and give, and you're like really generous, right? But introverted thinking is gonna say that, hey, how about myself? Because extroverted feeling has a tendency to forget about the host, the most important person, the person that actually is giving. Whereas introverted thinking is making a reality check, so to speak, and then is telling you whether you are actually able, whether you're in the position to give to somebody. Because you can only give to somebody else when you have something to give in the first place. And in that way, your introverted intuition can help you find this threshold. Okay, so number 2 and 3 are kind of tied together. 2 is strengthening your willpower, and 3 is being detached and non-influenceable. They're connected with each other because when you develop your willpower, you become like a horse that only sees its target and nothing else, right? And because the horse has blinders, which introverted thinking famously has, yeah, nobody can influence you. And you become kind of detached from their opinions, and that is really good because you can destroy all the noise that can convince you that you're not going in the right direction, if you give it power, of course. So introverted thinking creates theories and then finds external facts that will fit into this theory. And it can also reject the ideas or other maybe theories that are not in line with your initial theory. Of course, that can be good and bad, but we're going to focus on the good side right now. So the good thing here is that when you say to yourself, I can do this, then you start seeing evidence of the fact that you can do this. And for some reason, you just feel more energetic and you're more able to achieve your goals, and you will increase the chances of achieving your goals just by saying, I can do this. Okay, so number 4 is introverted thinking really helps you develop yourself, really helps your self-growth. And how does it do it? Well, it's introverted, so that means it's working inside of your mind. And what do you have inside of your mind? You have values, you have beliefs, limiting decisions, you have your memories, you have different language patterns, yeah? And all of this stuff is being analyzed by your introverted thinking. And what is analyze? Analyze is basically like mental surgery. So you basically open it up and then see for yourself if this is something that you want to have in your reality, in your current internal reality. And if you don't want to have it, you just discard it. And that's exactly what introverted thinking does. Introverted thinking is basically like a small detective that is always asking really probing and really interesting and maybe sometimes intimidating questions to anything that we have in our mind. Where does this come from, and where does this come from, and whether we need this or not. Like, for example, where does this belief come from? Why do I need to believe this? Is, for example, this person, if we figure out that this belief was implanted in us by another person, then we can ask this question, is this person, or did this person have a good intention towards me? And is it possible that this belief is not giving me as much good as I think it does? And maybe it gives me some negativity, and maybe negativity is way more than the positive things that it gives me? And in that case, why would I still have this belief? Introverted thinking in this case works like a radar, right? That finds out the dots or the specific targets that you need to find. And these targets are the things that you want to work at or work with. So if we make an analogy with astrology, for example, these dots on this radar that introverted thinking finds, these dots are Saturn locations, for example, or some planets that are in signs that are not really friendly with them, or maybe some aspects that are not very good, like for example opposition or square, or maybe even conjunction, but that really depends which type of planets are conjunct. Alright, so number 5, introverted thinking helps us be a pioneer. Why is it so? Well, because pioneers do not care about what other people think, right? They know something, they just feel that they can do something new, and then they just do it, in spite of what other people say. And let me give you some examples. For example, Roger Bannister, who ran 4 miles in 1 minute for the first time in quite a long time. According to John Bryant, a British journalist and runner. He said that it was a goal for like at least 68 years. So from 1996 they were trying to reach this goal, and they reached it only in 1954 by Roger Bannister. He was able to accomplish it just by his ability to not care what other people think and to do his own thing. He even had his own technique that other people were criticizing. He was basically a lone wolf. His technique was criticized, but he somehow inside himself, I don't know, believed that it is possible to achieve it, and also with his particular technique. And he did this, which is great. Another great example is Alexander Graham Bell. He invented the telephone, and in 1876 he went to the communications company in America called Western Union. And Western Union said that his invention is not more than a toy and it's something useless basically. But Alexander Graham Bell didn't really care about this, and the next year he created his own company, and in less than a decade he sold like 150,000 telephones. Take that! Or there's another example. There was an inventor, Lee DeForest, that in the 1920s gave his opinion on people thinking that it's possible to go into space with rockets. I am bold enough to say that such a man-made voyage will never occur regardless of all future advances. And then guess what? In 1961, about 3.5 decades after Lee DeForest said what he said, we have the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin. And there's another nice example. Sometimes there is not just that there's that there are other sources that say that, okay, you're not going to be able to accomplish this, but even you yourself, your own introverted thinking might come to these conclusions. That's when Wilbur Wright, one of the Wright brothers, said in 1901 that people are not going to be able to fly for 50 years. However, just 2 years later, the Wright brothers made history with their first powered aircraft in North Carolina. The most important thing I think here to realize is that every single thing that we see around us, every single thing had a moment of, well, it hasn't been done before. But does that mean that it's not possible? Well, introverted thinking does not really care about this, and does it anyway. Number 6 is introverted thinking helps you explore concepts faster, helps you explore by yourself what's possible and not being tied by whether it's proven or not. That's because introverted thinking really cares about the truth, but not whether it's validated by the outside source. And sometimes it does not even care whether it's proven or not by conventional science, which means that introverted thinkers can explore concepts faster. So let's say, for example, law of attraction and one of its tools, vision boards. So introverted thinker, instead of waiting for many peer-reviewed studies from some reputable sources, right? Instead of doing this and waiting for them, he or she is gonna go out and just test it for themselves for the next 90 days, for example, rather than waiting for other people to validate, to say that, yeah, okay, that's a good thing to do. As you can see, in the long term especially, that gives a big advantage because introverted thinker is gonna progress way faster in my opinion. And number 7, introverted thinking gives you independence and uniqueness. According to Bo Miller, introverted thinking gives us a strong desire to do it our own way. So if we make a comparison with extroverted thinking, then we can see that extroverted thinkers are creating designs that are there to increase productivity and efficiency, whereas introverted thinkers are more case-by-case study. Unique system for this case, unique system for this case, and for other cases as well. Which means that other people might find it original, and maybe an introverted thinker might accidentally find a fantastic method to do something. I think a great example is the agricultural scientist George Washington Carver, who created 300 different uses for peanut. He used it to make face cream, soap, medicine, insecticides, paper, and food, of course. He made about 105 recipes just for peanuts, including soup, bread, muffins, cake, omelette, sausage, candies, all made of peanuts. And even oranges made it. No, just kidding. Alright, now let's move on to the negative manifestations of introverted thinking. Number one is you can be sometimes the devil's advocate, so to speak. So again, you might do something that you feel guilty afterwards, right? But in that case, this guilt comes, well, because you've done something actually wrong to this person. And instead of thinking how to repair the situation and maybe go into this person and saying sorry, what you say is you justify it and you think that, okay, well, this person is not a saint either. He or she did this. I remember them doing this 2 years ago. And yeah, I am not that bad actually. And that gives you a false sense of rightness, a false sense of justification, and it makes it okay. But actually it does not make it okay, it just makes it okay in your subjective view. Subjective because it's introverted thinking, right? Here we really need to be careful not to go into a very subjective reality where we just have our own thoughts and we basically have no other criteria to think whether we are right or not. We are just thinking that we're right and that's it. And for that I have some solutions, but I'm gonna list them in the third part of this video. Okay, so number two, introverted thinking can keep you stuck in your subjective reality. Okay, as you remember, introverted thinking, what it does is it creates theories or ideas and then rejects all other ideas that do not fit with this one idea. And sometimes it may be good, right? Like I said, it's good when you want to achieve something, but also it can be really bad if your initial ideas are not so good, not so productive. And that means, for example, if you believe that you're nothing, that you're nobody, well, yeah, that's the evidence that you're gonna see in the world around you. And weirdly enough, you might be even defending this situation, this position, even though it's not true at all. So in my past, I would very often feel like a very worthless person, and because of that, my interpretations were all geared towards one thing, to make me feel the same emotion that I initially had, that of worthlessness. So for example, every single time when somebody would give me a compliment, like you did a good job, well, guess what I would do? I would minimize it and say, oh, okay, it didn't take that much time. Oh, it's nothing, it's not that big of a deal or something. When it actually was, objectively, I sometimes spent years doing it. And then I'm like, no, that's nothing. This minimization might be a mechanism of your introverted thinking. Or for example, anytime when somebody would offer me help, I would reject it. I would reject it because subconsciously I thought, well, I'm worthless, right? And do worthless people deserve help? No, not really. So I would say, thank you, no, that's okay. I'm gonna do it by myself. And instead of doing it way faster, I would take the long and hard road, and actually unnecessary road. Yeah, just because that was my idea. Or for example, anytime when I would relax, I would not be able to actually relax, right? So I would have like a off day, right? But it was not really an off day. It was just called an off day. It's just a fancy name, but actually this was not an off day because I would not feel worthy of resting, not feel worthy of a vacation of some sort. So guess what I would feel? I would feel guilt because I'm not supposed to rest. I'm not supposed to have fun or anything. No, I have to work. Have to work. And it was all due to undeveloped or underdeveloped TI, introverted thinking. And minus number 3 is that introverted thinking cares about whether it makes sense to us personally rather than whether it's validated by the outside source again. But now the negative part is that pioneers or inventors might kill themselves with their own inventions. And there are many, many examples that fall into this category. Sometimes feedback from the outside source, like for example from other people, might be really good and might even save our life. One of the famous deaths, which I think, in my opinion, can be attributed to not really developed introverted thinking, not caring about what other people say and just caring about your own idea, is the death of the inventor Franz Reichelt. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing him, but he jumped off the Eiffel Tower from the first platform, which is 187 feet high, I think, or like 57 meters high. And he jumped to his death, unfortunately. That happened in 1912, and he had a special suit on himself, and he thought that his suit is gonna convert to parachute, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So that is the unfortunate effect that might happen with a person with a reckless TI. And now, of course, there's another thing that, okay, how else are you gonna know whether it's gonna work or not? You have to risk somehow, right? Because there's also a saying, like, he who doesn't risk does not drink champagne. Yeah, of course, I understand this, but then still, sometimes you need to draw the line and then find this threshold. And I think that's where your gut feeling comes in, rather than pure logic and hypothetical theories that sometimes are not true in real life. Number 4, introverted thinking might make us unrealistic. So in the previous point, I said that introverted thinking does not care what other people say and it's unrealistic to them. But sometimes your introverted thinking might be even unrealistic to yourself. That's when I was making plans of like to-do list, and they were so big, but I thought that's definitely okay and achievable, right? But then I made a calculation of how much time approximately that's gonna take me. And guess what was the time? It was like 14 to 16 hours long, right? Just work, without food, without anything else. And then couple it with the fact that if you do not achieve all of those things on your to-do list, then you're gonna feel guilty and then you're gonna judge yourself. That's not a good place to be in. Thank God I don't have this anymore. Of course, for some people that might be okay, but for me personally, that was really unrealistic. Okay, minus number 5. Our introverted thinking might make us hypersensitive to criticism of us, of our ideas. Why is it so? Well, because we identify with those ideas, and that's painful. So we usually spend a fair amount of time thinking about something before we make like a final decision, right? And because of that, when you think about something for a long time, you invest your time in it. When you invest your time in it, you become emotionally invested. And when you become emotionally invested, you might go a little bit too far and even identify with it. And now, anytime when somebody else is going to say, you know what, that theory, I don't think it's that good, as good as you say it is, and then we might start a fight with this person or take it personally and feel pain. But it's not worth it, because you are not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, you're not even your behavior, okay? So an attack of your ideas does not equal an attack of you personally. How to not take things personally? Well, I made a video on this topic and you can find the link in the description. Now, another big minus number 6, is that introverted intuition, when it's overdeveloped, it can make you lose the ability to see the situation from another point of view, from the point of view of other people. It sounds kind of strange because we are traditionally empathetic, right? We're people that understand other people's points of view, but that is not always the case. And when we get too much into our introverted thinking side, that's the thing that might happen. And here you might think that, oh, okay, maybe there's like an inverse relationship, right? So the more developed your introverted thinking is, the less developed your extroverted feeling becomes. But that is not the case in my opinion. I really don't think that there is an inverse relationship, like the stronger your TI, the weaker your FE, or the opposite as well. So in my opinion, it's another thing here, and it's a matter of attention. So the more attention you give to anything, that thing grows. When you do not give attention to anything, that thing dies. So basically you can imagine two plants, and well, in this case you can imagine with other plants as well, but I'm gonna just focus on introverted thinking and extroverted feeling. But you can also imagine with introverted intuition, extroverted sensing, and other functions as well. So imagine it as being just two plants, and each of these plants, of course, they need water, right, to survive. And when you give water just to one plant, but you completely disregard or forget the other plant, then the other plant is just gonna die and this one is gonna grow. That's logical. It's not like these two plants hate each other or they fight with each other and the bigger one is, the weaker the other one is. No, it's just a matter of your attention. If you give the same amount of your attention to both of them, then both of them are gonna grow. If just one of them, then this is gonna grow, this one is gonna die. And the opposite is true as well. Thunder. One of these plants might die because they don't have enough water, enough food, not because the other plant killed it, right? And so let's imagine that these two plants, Ti and Fe, they just seem like they are separate only when you focus on one disregarding the other, or the opposite. But when you focus on both of them, then you realize that they are both actually part of something bigger underneath them. And this is INFJ. And this superorganism called INFJ requires these plants, well, in this case, these two plants, to be watered properly. And if you develop just one of them, but you forget about the other, then the whole organism is the one that is going to suffer. That's going to be like overdeveloping your heart and your lungs, but then forgetting about your liver and your kidneys. That's not going to work. That's not a good long-term plan. No. You can die really fast. And also another thing is, I said that you can overdevelop one of them, but in this case with the plants, with watering plants, it's not even overdeveloping. There's a point where you can water it too much, and when you water it too much, then this is really bad for the plant, because the plant leaves become wilt or brown, and they can even fall, and the plant can actually die. So that means that if you really overdevelop your TI, well, that's what you think, you overdevelop it, there's a point after which it does not develop anymore. It just becomes arrogant, stubborn, does not care what other people think in a bad way, right? Too risky, too reckless. And then the whole INFJ underneath it suffers. However, when you water both plants with the good amounts of water, then it's not only that they grow and they, well, by themselves are already healthy, but also they together synergistically create something that they could not have created just by themselves. It's like 1 + 1 = 3. Okay, so let's imagine an example. Let's say INFJ goes to another country, to a foreign country, and in that foreign country it is a custom to greet somebody with alcohol, right? But the INFJ is not a drinker, does not drink alcohol for at least 10 years already, and does not really care about this. And in the other country, if he rejects alcohol without giving a proper explanation, it is perceived as being really, really rude. It is basically like saying, I don't accept you, I don't accept your greeting. It's like saying, hello, well, get the hell out of here. However, that's definitely not the case in the country of INFJ. INFJ in his own country can easily say that, okay, I don't want to drink alcohol, and That's it, and nobody is gonna be forcing them or waiting for him to give an explanation or something, none of that. And so let's imagine the scenario where INFJ in another country is being offered a drink, and what does he do? Case one, where extroverted feeling is too developed, he's gonna say, oh yeah, sure, I'm gonna drink it. Even though in his mind he's gonna think, okay, I didn't drink alcohol for like 10 years and I've been really strict on this, but now I'm gonna drink because other people want me to and I don't wanna be rude and stuff like that. And as you can see, this is definitely trying to change yourself to fit other people, forgetting about yourself. Not good. Case number two, now introverted thinking developed too much. So people offer him a drink and then he's like, oh no, thanks, that's okay. And then people ask him, oh, why? And then he says, well, that's garbage. That's poison. So you see in this case, TI is ruthless, does not care about other opinions and has a strong opinion himself. But this is rude, this is not cool, because because in this case you might be offending other people's holidays or some traditions, yeah? And even though that might be objectively true, that alcohol is poison, right? But saying this in this way to these people is not nice. Wow. Maybe they have good intentions, but now you're just telling them that they've been wrong all this time. And maybe it might be true that alcohol is poison, but they don't need to know it right at that moment, right? I think everything has its own appropriate time when you can say this. But in this case, TI is very tactless and quite subjective, because in my world, it's done like this, and I don't care how it's done in your worlds are wrong. And the third case is where both TI and FE are both equally nurtured, equally developed. And in that case, they work synergistically together and they create something bigger than themselves. And in this case, when the INFJ is being offered a drink, he can say, oh, thank you very much for your generosity and for your willingness to make me feel as cozy as possible in your country. Thank you very much, I appreciate that. However, I do not drink alcohol already for many years, and I would prefer to have a different, non-alcoholic, in this case, drink. Would that be possible? That's it. How about that? Way better, right? So you are stating your own ideas and not compromising too much for other people, but not being a jerk at the same time, which is great. So the best of both worlds. So basically your logic becomes more compassionate, or your compassion more logical. Logical compassion, compassionate logic. However, that is achievable only when you give adequate amounts of water to each plant. And even though I know that some INFJs are more comfortable using their TI more than FE, or the opposite, like me, extroverted feeling over introverted thinking, but the key here is to develop both of them, because they're friends, they're not enemies. Problems usually start when you give too much attention to one and completely disregard or forget or ignore the other. And I promise you, watering these plants together is way more satisfying than just focusing on one plant and forgetting about the others. And I have a feeling that INFJs that go into quite technical professions like engineering, they are the ones that are prone to develop their introverted thinking so strong, so that they sometimes might forget about other people and how other people might view them. That does not have to be always the case, but if you're in that profession, then I think it's a good idea to be aware of this tendency. Okay, so minus number 7, TI can create serious self-doubt. Now, of course, this is normal, because as you remember, one of the pluses is that we develop. But how do we develop? With our introverted thinking, by analyzing every single thing that we have in our mind. And when we analyze, we're basically questioning everything, and it's being like a detective and asking, why are you here? What are you doing? What's your intention? And when you ask those questions again and again and again, every single day with most of your ideas, then of course you get destabilized. And when you get destabilized, you might even change your identity. And identities have different orders. It's like different levels of identities, right? And for one order of identity, it needs one set of beliefs and values. The other identity, which is in complete conflict with the other identity, it needs another set of beliefs and ideas and values and decisions and different memory interpretations, for example, right? And in order to grow from this one to this one, you need to use your introverted thinking and then question your values, your beliefs, and your decisions and so on, right? And before you move from this guy to this guy, you will have to go through a period of chaos. So TI is the generator of this chaos, right? Of this distance between these two identities. And it might be very, very good for us in the long term, but in the short term, it does not feel nice, no. But usually self-growth is not really, does not feel really nice, but it is nice in the long term, especially. Introverted thinking has the ability to create meanings, create different meanings, and sometimes faulty meanings. And immature introverted thinking is the one that creates faulty meanings. Like, for example, I've done something wrong, and that means that I'm a bad person. Bad person, this is an extrapolation. This is not the truth, the universal truth, but this is something that your mind developed out of this thing that you've done. It's like your mind was using this thing that you've done as a reason to think why you are a bad person. That might not be the case. But the immature TI does not really understand it, whereas mature TI, in my opinion, can understand the fact that everybody has the ability to create their own reality, basically, their own interpretations. What is good, what is neutral, what is bad. And I think mature TI can change the meanings and play with them. Whereas the unhealthy TI notices what is right here and right now based on what it already experienced in the past. And things that were in the past sometimes are not nice things. And if they're not nice things, then accordingly, you're gonna see the world in these lights. For example, if you've been told that you are nothing, that you're worthless, that you're a piece of you know what, well then, yeah, because of your immature introverted thinking, you're going to be unable to see the evidence that will suggest otherwise. And you will find people, you will find situations and other things that will confirm the fact that you are this piece of whatever your parents, for example, told you. And of course, that can create crazy self-doubt. But it does not have to be like this. So what usually has been implanted into us is an unproductive or not so very useful way of thinking about things, or in other words, interpretations. We've usually been taught to have wrong interpretations. Like, for example, when you've done something wrong, usually parents, or maybe your guardians, did not usually say to you, hey, it's very good that you've done this mistake, because right now you know what not to do. Good for you, because now you're a better version than you were before you made this mistake. But I feel like the majority of parents or guardians don't say it like this. They usually are condemning you for the fact that you've done this and you're wrong. Oh, I mean, that's what they say. You're wrong, you're a bad girl, bad boy, right? But that's really unproductive and quite damaging to the child, because you don't say that their behavior was wrong. You say that they as a person, they are wrong. But identification and the behavior are different things. When you attack a behavior of a person, then the person does not feel as personally attacked. He does not feel that he needs to defend his position. Whereas if you attack the identity of a person, in that case, it's going to be a very damaging thing to a child or to a person who does not have the critical thinking developed yet. In that case, she's going to start to develop this personality where she's going to subconsciously be looking for evidence to affirm the fact that she is that bad girl and that unworthy creature. But if you're the type of parent or guardian that teaches the child that it's okay to make mistakes and it's actually good to make mistakes, that they are creating you as a personality, then good for you. Another thing is that for a child it's a lot easier to change their behavior when you attack their behavior, not their identity. But when you attack their identity, it's quite hard to change the behavior, because the identity is the fact that dictates, the thing that dictates how you're gonna behave. So your actions, your behavior depends on your identity. And if you've instilled into a child the fact that they think that they are unworthy, well, in this case, they will have corresponding behavior. And the opposite is true as well. You do it enough times, and then the child develops a habit of seeing himself or herself as an unworthy child, let's say, for example. And the stronger the habit becomes, the deeper it is in your subconscious mind. And then it becomes a program that is working underneath the surface. You cannot see it, but you can see it with your results, because all of your results for some reason are not really productive, as with other people, for example, that don't have this type of unconscious belief. So instead of seeing something as it is and taking it as a fact, like I've done something or I saw something or I thought something, instead of just saying this, you are adding the fact that, oh, and that means that I'm a bad person somehow. Like that's a valid justification, but that's not the case. That's something inside of you, that's the subconscious belief that you have going on. And these bad interpretations can give a big amount of self-doubt. 5 ways to develop your introverted thinking. So the first solution is asking good questions. For example, anytime that you are taking some kind of a decision, you can ask yourself the following questions. For example, anytime when you are deciding something important, then you can ask yourself the following questions. For example, is this originating out of positivity or out of negativity? Is this going to lead me to positivity or to negativity? Is this a decision that a wise person would take? Is this going to give me the most fulfillment? Is this going to make me more confident? Do I want to sample contentment and satisfaction only when props and players are in the right configuration? Will this decision lead me to a higher self-respect? Is this decision going to lead me towards my highest version? If I was my best friend, what advice would I give myself? And finally, is this a good investment of my time? Solution number 2 is to fact-check it with external sources. So that might be people from your immediate environment, like your family, your friends, or maybe some specific sites like Quora, for example, or some forums where you can ask the question of what to do in your situation, or whether your decision, the decision that you are thinking about, is a good one, but you inside do not feel whether it's a good one or not really. In that case, external fact check is brilliant. Number 3, relax by stimulating your mind. You can play some strategy games, for example, or you can do some fun quizzes, like quizzes on geography, on history, on biology, and so on. You can do logic puzzles, or you can research in depth some nuanced topics. Like, for example, for me, a couple of years ago, it was astrology, and it was quite interesting. I would watch like hundreds of videos. It was quite complicated, but also quite a lot of fun. I'm sure that you are having your own topics that you will find quite fascinating. Number 4, expand your horizons. And what I mean by that is find quite contradicting sometimes information with different people thinking different things about the same topic. So for me, it was the theory of flat Earth, because most of my life I was convinced completely convinced that the Earth is spherical in nature. And then I watched some videos and read something which gave me quite a lot of doubts. And they had some solid evidence, I would say. But I didn't just stop there, and I watched another person, and he said that he contacted some higher version of himself or some high intelligence, and that intelligence told him that the Earth is both spherical and flat, depending on how you look at it. That's crazy, right? But yeah, it's interesting to know different viewpoints and then research it thoroughly to make your own opinion on that. And if some kind of opinion you find absurd or kind of weird, then at least it's gonna give you something to talk about, something to laugh about maybe. And the most important thing here is not that the Earth is spherical or flat or square or whatever, it does not really matter. What matters is to develop your own internal thinking. Because how you do anything is how you do everything. And when you are training this muscle, you're gonna try to do this same kind of algorithm of seeing the same thing from different sides with the other things. And that might serve you really well because you're gonna be more informed on this situation. And when you're informed, you can make better decisions. Because usually our introverted thinking thinks that, okay, you know what, listening to other people is kind of a waste of time because I already know the best decision, so yeah, that's it. I'm pretty sure that you can remember at least one instance in your life where you thought that this, whatever you have in mind, is the best thing ever. And other people might have had a better idea, and if you just listened to them, it would have saved you maybe 3 months of time, maybe $5,000, I don't know, or maybe a lot of nerves. Introverted thinking is fantastic, but not perfect, okay? So sometimes it's a good idea to listen to other people too. And solution number 5, in order to make sure not to go too deep into introverted thinking, make sure to develop your extroverted feeling. And how to develop your extroverted feeling? Well, I've made a whole video on this, where you have, I think, 6 solutions how to develop your extroverted feeling. Alright, that's it. Thank you very much for investing your time in this video. I really appreciate that. If you found any value in this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more videos like this. Also, if you have some Infj friends or somebody that you think might benefit from watching this video, then please share it with them. And if you have any questions or suggestions, then please let me know in the comment section below. Here's the summary, and see you in the next video.